Hello everyone, I am Alka1093 and welcome to this deck profile video. Yeah, deck profile, not a duel video today. I used to do quite a decent amount of deck profiles in the Dueling Network days, and I am completely okay with doing them here as well. Back then on Dueling Network, I definitely did a lot of deck requests where you could request a deck to see in the comments. You could still do that, but I'm not going to promise I will get to it or put it on a list. But if I like the idea that I may just get to it in a duel. But if you see me use a deck in a duel video that you'd like to see a deck profile of, then please let me know. I'm very likely I will be able to get to you. And this one was requested to me, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, so here I am with my deck profile. I won't say this is the perfect burn deck profile, but this is a deck that I like to use quite regularly if I don't have anything else to play. This deck, I pretty much know how to play, and with only a very slight variation of this, I did get top 8 at HaYCS number 1, an online YCS tournament by Harmonic Soul. So I'd like to take you through my deck. Starting us off with monsters, as you can expect in Burn deck, there aren't that many monsters. I have two combos of Absolute King, Back Jack, which based on attacking or defending, doesn't do too much. I suppose it stops one attack because as a defensive monster, but that's what most monsters can do. The nice thing about this thing is it it has two effects, but you really use them in reverse order. The first one, if it sends it to the graveyard, which is generally by battle, you pretty much stack the top 3 cards of your deck whichever way you want. Often, Backjack goes to the graveyard during the opponent's turn because they attack into it. The idea is set a normal trap card to the top of the deck, one that you preferably want to activate immediately the next turn, or maybe even that same turn. Reckless Greed might be such a card. Then, during the opponent's turn, so before you start your turn, because you can use both effects in the same turn, you use the other effect, banish Backjack from the grave. Check the top card of your deck, which most likely is that normal trap card that you put there, and if it's a normal trap, you can immediately set it to the field, which means you can then use it the next turn, which is very nice instead of having to wait for it. So that allows you to get some cards from the top of the deck that you want. Magician of Faith, I don't quite remember why I put that one in there. Maybe to get some important spell cards back, like some extra draw stuff like Pot of Desires. This deck at base was based on the burn deck that Ryan Yu took to the Dragon Duel World Championships, I think in 2017. I think he won with that. I love that he won it. Because I played Burn as well, and I think he had a copy of Magician of Faith. Although Magician of Faith is generally one of the cards that I take out because I don't feel it's very strong. It doesn't really set up your deck like Backjack, and you're not even certain that things like Duality and Desires can really get you what you want. So that's probably generally one of the first things I'd side out, and if I really want to rework this deck, that's probably one of the first cards I'll take out. Fossil Dynamo Pachycephalo is a card that can either disrupt your opponent's spells, because a lot of meta decks right now do special summons. Pachycephalo can disrupt that, or just destroy them if they're already set up, and especially that destruction part that gets quite a lot of use, because the only time you really can disrupt them is if you go first and you normal summon Pachycephalo. Some decks can't then get over it, but yeah, still just any kind of monster destruction can get rid of it, and any normal summon over 12 on an attack can take it out as well, as long as you don't have a Threatening War or Geometry or Ring of Destruction to help you with that. Or Blazing Mirror Force? Yeah, Blazing Mirror Force I suppose could as well, but it is somewhat easy to get over Pachycephalo even with a normal summon, but with a lot of decks focusing on special summons and combos, this is a very nice card to have. I have a copy of Sandaion, the Timelord, which you take no battle damage from it, and it doesn't get destroyed by battle. So unless its effect is negated, it, I suppose, stalls for a turn. But if it battles, it can put every card in the opponent's graveyard back into their deck, which is able to, especially late game, remove a lot of the setup that they've done, which is very nice. And once per turn, if the opponent draws a card, inflict 1,000 damage to them, which generally is just their draw phase. Unfortunately for Sandaion, otherwise I think it would be too strong during your standby phase, it's shuffled back into your deck. But the 1,000 damage can be pretty cool, and especially that getting rid of all that setup in the opponent's graveyard is nice. If the opponent's deck doesn't rely on their graveyard at all, maybe it's an idea to side Sandaion out for other cards. But if the opponent depends a lot on their graveyard, then Sandaion could be a very nice card. Now, I have Firecracker here as well. It's not with the rest of the monsters because originally I had Poison of the Old Man at one copy in Firecracker's position here, which I decided to take out for Firecracker because I thought because I'm playing a burn deck, and 1,000 damage from Firecracker is more than the 800 damage from Poison to the Old Man. Although Firecracker does make you skip your next draw phase, I did want to go with that, and also Firecracker allows another effect which could potentially get some more damage in. And I have normal summon Firecracker a few times, considering it does have nice 1700 attack, but I've never actually dealt any damage. I think maybe once with its other effect. So I don't think at more than one it's that useful. I do believe Firecracker stacks, maybe even with Reckless Greed. Don't quote me on that though. I know Reckless Greed. No, it doesn't stack. If you play multiple Reckless Greed, you still skip just two. And I think Firecracker goes with that as well. Like it can even go together with Reckless Greed if you play both. You still skip just two. But don't quote me quite on that. I still have to look that up. Part of Duality, I'd almost immediately go to Balance of Judgment here, but part of Duality and part of Desires is to get more cards in your hand. Part of Desires, two copies to get more cards. You play one card, you get two. That is nice, and you definitely want as many pieces together. Also because you want to be able to respond to your opponent well enough with things like Blazing Mirror Force or potentially Ring of Destruction or defend yourself with Maboku. But having as many cards as possible is very nice to have. So having some draw power in a deck like this and not just burn is very important, because otherwise you'll run out of resources before you'll be able to finish the opponent off. Duality is a 1-for-1 in terms of card advantage, but it does allow you to choose the card that you get from the top three. A little bit like stacking the deck with Backjack. Although Duality adds a card to your hand and shovels the rest back in, with Backjack you still know what the next two cards will be. Card Demise, because you set a bunch of cards on the field, Card Demise allows you to get some more cards to potentially then set that same term as well, and then maybe you get a Backjack alongside it, and you can set that on the field. Chain Strike, really the only card that makes this deck still be called Chain Burn. I like the name Chain Burn because I've used it so many times, but really this is the only thing that's really making it called Chain Burn. The only other chain that I really do is if the opponent plays like Twin Twisters on my stuff and I chain one or two cards because they work together, like Just Desserts or Geometrio. If the opponent targets one or two of them with Twin Twisters, I chain Just Desserts and then Trio to deal some extra damage. But that's really all the chain there is. So now I really just call this deck Burn. It used to be Chain Burn, so I might put chain in brackets. But yeah, Chain Strike is still in there. Can help with some nice damage if you can build the chain up, which definitely is possible. Balance of Judgment helps with draw power. At like turn one, you might put, at least your own turn one, you might put a lot of cards in the field, but then hopefully you'll be able to get rid of a lot of them, because a lot of them are things you can instantly use. Your damage stuff like Just Desert, Secret Blast, draw stuff like Reckless, although it doesn't really work with Reckless, but quite often you'll have a lot of cards off the field after you use some of your damaging stuff, and then you'll be left like 1-2 cards, including a Balance of Judgment, and then hoping that the opponent has a bunch of cards on their field, because that is required for Balance of Judgment. You can draw a lot of cards, and I've drawn like, on occasions you might draw just 3 cards off of Balance of Judgment, but sometimes like 7 or 8 depending on what the opponent has. Unfortunately, the last few times I've tried that, there was always been Ash Blossom that blocks draw cards, and they've always hit Balance of Judgment. So yeah, that is unfortunately something that can happen, and then I was just dead that game. Blazing Mirror Force allows you to not only get rid of the opponent's monsters when they're attacking, but also deal damage. Yes, you also take damage, but so do they, and you want to just deal damage to them. So then have your other burn cards finish it off. Dimension Wall is a card that is left over from my previous deck. I used to have a Magic Cylinder in there too, but that was when I had Lava Golem. I don't actually have Lava Golem in the deck, and maybe I should consider putting that back in, because Lava Golem worked nicely for me. Then I had, I think, like 3 Dimension Wall, 2 Magic Cylinder, and like 2 or 3 Lava Golem in that deck. Especially if the opponent has a big monster on the field, this can just really surprise the opponents and just make their 3,000 attack or whatever they have deal damage to them and bring you great advantage. Just Desserts, 500 for every monster they control. If they have multiple monsters, especially with like a big Link combo, works out in combo with Ojama Chio. That is great, because Ojama Chio just puts 3 monsters on their field with 1,500 extra damage. And if you have that with multiple Just Desserts, that is major damage. Reckless Greed for extra draw power, just like with Pot of Desires. You really want to get multiple of these together so you don't skip additional turns, because they don't like go on top of each other. Where if you use 2 like Reckless Greeds, you skip 4, you still skip 2. So you really want to see some of these together. Secret Barrel and Secret Blast are there for pretty much the same reason. Like Just Desert looks only at monsters. Secret Blast looks at every card the opponent controls, but then is only 300 damage per card, but it's still very nice to get some damage out there, and it can again come with the Geometry, just dealing 900 damage as opposed to 1500 for the 3 tokens that you summon. And Secret Barrel is 200 damage, which is even less, but it also looks at the opponent's cards in their hand. So I suppose you could use it when like you go first and the opponent has 6 cards in their opening hand, you could go for 12. Or if they build up a bunch of resources on their field and hand, Secret Barrel can deal a lot more later. Then for a bit of defense, I have 3 Threatening Roar and a Waboku to make sure the opponent doesn't actually destroy your monster or just doesn't deal damage at all. I have Threatening Roar over Waboku, is because Waboku 1 happens. It can happen like before the attack declaration, but I generally use it then, and then the Ancient Gears can negate it. But if I know there's Ancient Gears that use it before, but Threatening Roar just doesn't allow the attack to happen whatsoever. So if I have, let's say, a Backjack face down or any monster in face down defensive position, then if I play Threatening Roar, they still don't know what the monster is. If I play Waboku, even though the monster isn't destroyed, they do know what the monster is, and maybe next turn they can play a little smarter around it. So that's why I prefer Threatening Roar. Ring of Destruction, a little similarly to Blazing Mirror Force, can get rid of one of the opponent's annoying monsters. I think it was the duel video that you saw 2 days ago where I took out a Chaos number 107 to set up what ended up being a very easy victory. 4,500 damage. Now, you'll barely ever get that amount of damage, but if you can, that is major. Please go for it. You really want that. Geometry, the final 2 cards, these are left over from my previous version of the deck, which I think then Secret Blast wasn't in the deck because it didn't exist yet in TCG. Like when I originally built this, I did have Secret Barrel and Just Desert, and as I said, especially with Just Desert, it works amazing. The biggest problem with Geometry now, and that is definitely something I want to look at when I rebuild this deck, Geometry, and after that, like the Barrel that deserves the Blast, but especially Trio, they are tokens. They're on the opponent's field. They can be used for link summons, and sure, a good amount of link summons require warriors. Let's say in Isolde it requires warriors, and Heatleo requires fire effect monsters. That's not a Geometry. But Nightmare Phoenix, Nightmare Cerberus, Nightmare Unicorn, very splashable and very strong and useful link monsters. They're generic ones. And sure, they require different names, so they can only use one of the tokens. But Phoenix is just one of their monsters plus one of your tokens. They then can use their other monster that they might have for something else. Or then they have Phoenix and destroy one of your spells and traps, and then they take Phoenix plus a second of your tokens that you just gave them for free to summon Unicorn and do some more stuff. So, Ojama Trio, yeah, I probably wouldn't recommend using it in the deck. At the moment, I still have it in there. I did use it in the HaYCS, but the tokens were definitely used against me, so quite often I cited them out. Although they do still have a use, and I'll get to that in a second. Extra deck. I don't often use my extra deck, as you can expect. So really, I could use, I'm just thinking about that now. Extravagance. Pot of Extravagance could be pretty nice over Pot of Desires, maybe instead of something else. Because then I still get 2 cards for 1. But yeah, I'll get to why Extravagance might be useful or might not be useful in just a second. First 4 cards are fusions. These were specifically chosen. And like none of these are random fill-ins for the extra deck. They all have their use. Or potential use anyway, like some of them I've never used. The fusions were put in just before I started the HaYCS, because I realized that super polymerization, now that it was a thing again, could be nice against Salamangreats, because they often go into the link monsters and they have another monster alongside. And if I happen to have a set super polymerization, then I can go into Phyla Chimera. So I decided to just put 3 super polys in my side deck, so that Phyla Chimera can be summoned. But then I thought, wait, there's other cards I can summon with Super Poly. Starving Venom with 2 Darks. Didn't end up summoning it, but there's definitely decks out there with Dark Mons. Maybe not as much now. Maybe there'll be more in later metas. Starving Venom. It's a nice card to just have as a Super Poly target in case they have Dark Monsters. And First of the Dragons I just put in there because I thought it's also something. And they might not have a bunch of normal monsters, because you don't really see that often in the decks, but if there's decks with tokens, Cybers, for example, with Cybers Gadget, just get is a token, that's a normal monster, and then you can summon First of the Dragons. And that's just why I put in First of the Dragons, until I realized, wait a second, Ojama Trio gives them normal monsters. So that is the only like savior, I suppose, for Ojama Trio. Is yes, it gives them tokens to link someone with, but then you can use them with Super Polymerization, assuming you have them in your main deck at the time, to summon First of the Dragons. And that can be somewhat difficult to get around with, considering its effect. So that can be a nice card to have. Then 2 Synchro monsters, Bryanak and Blackwing Nothing the Starlight. Bryanak is just a nice level 6 to have, and Nothing because the 800 damage it deals. But I think I had those in there when Deskawala was still on the main deck. The only reason I have the Synchros in here is because this card. Ghost Reaper and Winter Terrors. I put that in the side deck 2 formats ago or something. And I thought, on the rare occasion that I might want to use it as a tuner, I could use it alongside something to synchro, and alongside Pachycephalo is not going to work because it's still special summons, and I don't expect it to be able to use it alongside Blackjack, or I didn't find a useful level 4, so that might be a possibility, so I decided to put in these two. But considering I'm not using Deskawala anymore, really I just should get rid of this and make space for other things. Most of the rest of the extra deck is filled in for potential things for Ghost Reaper, so whatever I expect to see a lot of in the meta and index, I have them here. I have a Gaga Cowboy, which, unless effects are negated on Pachycephalo, I'm never going to be able to summon unless I side in another Firecracker. But considering it can deal burn damage, I have one copy of that. I have a Mirage Delio, a Sunlight Wolf, and a Heat Leo in there, because for top card in HaYCS, I wouldn't say I went all in, but I went a lot into trying to beat Salamangreat. I was expecting a lot of that. I didn't know too much about the other decks. And I thought, I just hope I face Salamangreat, so it'll be a difficult opponent, but I have some side cards against him, like Super Poly into Violet. And hope I can beat them, potentially with Ghost Reaper as well. Then, Sky Striker Ace Hayate is one of the Sky Striker cards to stop. Altergeist Hextia, I don't think Altergeist are like the top meta anymore, but they were at or near top meta before, so I did leave Hextia in here. Isolde in like the Dark Warrior deck was very high in the tier list. I don't really like talking about the tier list, but it was used very often and very successfully in the meta in various tournaments. I have Isolde there. And then Boral Sword, because there have been a few times where I have been OTK'd so hard by Boral Sword and I didn't see it coming. And if I see it coming, I guess I want to be able to stop it. Although I probably want to use Ghost Reaper on other combo pieces, so I might, like, if I really want to go anti-things with like Ghost Reaper, maybe I'll put something else in instead of Boral Sword. But yeah, there's not a lot of cards here that have been used very much. It'll probably be the fusions that get used the most due to Super Poly, but it's nice to have the other cards there for potential things for Ghost Reaper. The rest of my side deck besides Ghost Reaper and Super Poly, a few of them are things I've considered or am considering, and some of the things are actually proper side deck things. That's why I said this isn't like the perfect representation of what I use in the tournament. There have been a few things I've slightly moved around since or have new ideas for. Pachycephalo if I wanted to disrupt the opponent more, disrupt the special summons more. Deskawala used to be in there. I think Ryan, you had one of them as well, just to have some nice damage, especially turn 1. Could be some nice damage if they keep a lot of cards in their hand. But I didn't really like it as much. Maybe I throw it in actually instead of Magician of Faith. I'm actually going to do that right now. Hey, I made a change in the middle of a deck profile, because I just said Magician of Faith I'll probably take out. I think I'll probably like the damage output of Deskawala more. Although with Pot of Extravagance coming back, maybe I should test it differently, but I guess I'll play with Deskawala a little bit. See how that works out. Maybe I'll rework the entire deck like next week if I feel like it. Curse of Darkness remains as... I used to have 2 of them in the side deck as a Sky Striker thing, but I wanted to put in a bunch of things, as I said, against Salamangreats, so I decided to take out one of the Curse of Darkness. We went over Super Poly, mostly against Salamangreats. Can't be used against others, mostly against Salamangreats. There can only be one if the opponent uses a deck with a bunch of different types of monsters. Inspector Border is a card that can be used in various decks. Stops monster effects, and considering I don't use that many monster effects, I think it can work in my deck. Evenly Match is a very nice card if the opponent plays really big boards. You might have, with this stack, like multiple set cards at first, but later on you might have let's say, maybe only 1, 2, 3 cards on the field max. in late game, so that evenly matched could be a nice thing to get rid of a bunch of the opponent's board. Ghost Reaper we went over. Stop certain extra deck pieces that they have with things that you have yourself. And then Microcosms and Dimensional Fissure are there to make sure graveyard pieces that the opponent wants in the graveyard don't never reach the graveyard to begin with. Microcosmos with all cards, Dimensional Fissure just for the monsters. That is the deck profile for my burn deck. Please let me know in the comments what you think of it. As I said, I don't believe this is the optimal burn deck. If there ever truly is an optimal one, probably not. But I didn't want to just throw it out of that where I feel like weaknesses are and strengths of it. Ojama Trio is, I feel that it's a very risky play. I still have it in there because I don't really know how else to play the deck yet. But you only want to see Ojama Trio when you have like one or two Just Desserts and maybe a Secret Blast alongside. But if you see Ojama Trio with maybe just a Secret Barrel and you haven't seen any Just Desserts, then you really don't want to use it. Unless this is like game 2 or 3 and you have Super Poly, or you put Super Poly in the main deck. And like then you might want to do it. But otherwise you don't want to see Ojama Trio, and I don't like that idea. Potentially Pot of Extravagance, so I'm just gonna like, which card do I not want anymore? Yeah, anyway, I'll just consider I'll just put it here as a consideration for now, Pot of Extravagance, because it is a nice card and I don't really use my extra deck too much. So I think Pot of Extravagance is a nice card that you could think about. If you have any ideas of like how to change my deck, please let me know in the comments as well, because I'd like to just improve, help me prepare for what works against top decks. I hope that the person who requested it, sorry, I forgot your name, but I didn't think of looking it up before the video, so I apologize about that. But you wanted to see this to compare it with your own burn deck. Hope you got some ideas of what I play and why I play it, and why I maybe suggest against playing other cards, so you can make a really good burn deck yourself. Once again, if there's any decks you see me use in duel videos that you'd like to see as a deck profile, please let me know, and I'll likely be able to get that in the coming days after that request. Finally, before I go, I wanted to say a similar thing as what I did in the duel video that you saw with this burn deck, is that I have a Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournament server, and if you're interested in that, then there will be a link in the description of this video and you can join that. It'll be a permanent link, so even if you watch this in a few weeks or even a few months time, you can still click on it and join that Discord server where I will host pretty regular tournaments on Dueling Book. But not like your standard meta tournaments, but I'll give you 1 to 3 main sets. Think Savage Strike, think Ancient Sanctuary, think Abyss Rising. I'll give you 1 to 3 of those. Potentially a starter structure deck, and then like a subset like Astral Pack 2. And then from that very limited card pool, you have to make your deck for the tournament. And I think that'd be a really fun, different way to play tournaments. If you're interested in that, please use the link in the description. I hope to see you there. And I also hope to see you in my next video. Goodbye.